How much is your hour worth right now?
Like $6,000 an hour.
Dang.
So I had an inflection point where I was like, I've got enough money.
How much is Oodie worth right now?
People are saying they're worth $500 million, which isn't true. First hire was my brother. Second hire was my brother's friends. It was just an absolute disaster. Primary school, I was selling cookies. In high school, I was selling caps. I'm insanely competitive. And I pulled up my account and I was like $2 million cash sitting there.
Takes youngest shark and inventor of the Oodie. It's entrepreneur Davie Fogarty.
I have friends that say I wouldn't trade my life for Davie's because they have seen it all. They have seen me like broken.
Wanting to win? Does it also come from a dark place, do you think?
I think about dying every day, every single day.
Oh, awesome. I feel like I'm wasting your time with my bullshit podcast. Why? I don't know.
No, you're not wasting my time.
How much is your...
I've got all the time for you, mate.
Oh, thank you. How much is your hour worth right now?
I did the maths a while back, and when I was doing, $30 million EBITDA from my e-commerce brands, granted we don't do that at the moment, it's less, but that equates to like $6,000 an hour.
Dang.
So obviously you can't just do that maths because a lot of random things, but this is why certain people fly private, because their hourly rate really is that high, and the 1 hour sitting at the security and then going through all of those issues, and then a flight is delayed, that just is worth so much. So I do believe that everybody should calculate their hourly net worth based on their salary divided by how many hours they're working, because a lot of people, what you'll find is that, the $20 product of ASOS isn't worth driving the way to the post office to return. It's just a waste of your time. So, and by constantly putting targets on improving how much our hourly rate is worth, we're just going to become better and achieve more.
So for people who are listening in, and right off the bat you said when you achieve $30 million, for people who don't know who you are, who are you and what have you done? So
I have done a lot of things and failed a lot of things, but what I'm well known for is starting the Oodie, which went from zero to doing over $100 million a year in 2-3 years in e-commerce, which for those that don't know e-commerce, doing over 9 figures is a really exciting thing. Granted, I got super lucky. Like, I didn't know what I was doing back then. It was great product timing. Unfortunately, where COVID was devastating for the world, for e-commerce as a whole, it was actually really good because everyone was stuck at home. So I got really lucky there. I got lucky. I surrounded myself with really good people. I've been very lucky for my parents, supporting an entrepreneur rather than forcing me to go to college. So I've been very lucky, and that led me to, launching the Oodie, growing that, launching a bunch of other things, including Daily Mentor, which coaches $1 million founders. I also give away all of my e-commerce information for beginners for free, and I'm pretty known kind of on YouTube for that.
Oodie is such a big phenomenon, like such a big brand. When did you start it, and how did it all come together? So
I just failed my Vietnamese roll shop, and it was my 6th business or something like that. And I decided that I was going to go away and learn the skills required, because I was like, if I keep failing businesses, surely there's something wrong here. So I pretty much went to all these businesses in Adelaide and said, I'll work for free. I will do your videography. I will run your Facebook ads. I'll do literally anything. Just let me sell stuff for you. And then after that, I really built this crazy skill set up where I could finally launch a product. And that first product I launched actually wasn't even the Oodie, the wear blanket. Was calming blankets, a weighted blanket for people that were struggling to sleep, that needed proprioceptive input, that they needed a sense of calm through weight. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to become a blanket king. I'm going to sell blankets in every format. So wearable blankets that have existed around forever back then. So I launched a variation of that, built the brand. All of those skills just came flocking back and actually finally allowed me to launch the Oodie. And then, I scaled up. First hire was my brother. Second hire was my brother's friends. that hire was my friends. It was just an absolute disaster from start to finish initially. You know, there was good times, but I just, again, didn't really know what I was doing. But yeah.
How much is Oodie worth right now?
I don't know. It depends what valuation you have. People are saying they're worth $500 million, which isn't true. This is just lazy journalism, to be completely honest. I think one person grabbed our video from 0 to 500 million, where we clearly say that it's revenue, but I'm not worth $500 million. Absolutely not. So yeah, I don't know. Oodie is probably worth, it depends on the valuation, maybe $50 to $150 million. Range.
Wow. But it's such a big thing right now. But when you first started, do you remember when you first started getting money? Like, how did it all happen?
I always knew I wanted to be rich for as long as I can remember. I can't remember the day that happened. It was kind of always there. And I always had a little bit more than everybody else because I was always doing things. In primary school, I was selling cookies to the teachers. In high school, I was selling caps. I was driving around selling caps using Facebook groups, like snapbacks. And then after that, I was selling shout outs on Instagram. So I always had a business going. And that meant that I always just had a little bit more money. When it comes to money, it's a very relative thing. It's the same as most things. If your circle has X and you have X plus 1, you're gonna feel well off. Even if I went to another circle, I go to Dubai or something like that, and I'm hanging out with billionaires, I'm gonna feel like I don't have much, and that's just the human condition. So I always felt a little bit like that, but with that came a lot of fear as well, that I didn't want to lose that. But yeah, to answer your question, it was always good having lots of money.
When did it change the trajectory for Oodie? Like, you found the product and then you started selling. When did you first see the real success of it and you thought, oh shit, like this product is gonna work, I'm gonna go fucking mad on it?
That inflection point happens for different people. Some people have one business that's like just plateauing, and then suddenly they figure something out and then they unlock it. And often that inflection point is either the world changing, like it's finally ready for this fad trend, or AI changes it, or something starts working on social media, and then suddenly it takes off. And there's heaps of stories like that. My story is a little bit different, where it was about product market fit and also my skills. So I was launching all of these businesses, but the skill that I lacked them all, but I lacked understanding how to pick a product that actually solves an issue. As soon as I fixed that skill of finding a product, that was my inflection point that took off, because Calming Blankets, my first brand that I launched, did $10 million in its first year. And that's a bit of a milestone as well for e-commerce people. So that happened just so quickly for me, that it's to the point where I can't really remember this crazy moment where I thought I'd made it. There was one point where I think my brother had a lot of friends over and they were partying and whatnot, and I was up at 5 a.m. working. By the way, nothing against partying. I was partying a lot back in those days as well, but I just wasn't, I was just razor focused at this point of time. He came in and he hadn't slept and he was pretty drunk, and he was like, "Oh, it's so exciting that you're like a millionaire now, blah, blah, blah." And it's like, "When are you going to become a cash millionaire?" And so for the people that don't know, book millionaire is someone that has assets worth $1 million. So if you're doing like $300,000 profit, you could technically be a book millionaire because you can sell that business for $1 million.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm already a cash millionaire. And I pulled up my account and it was like $2 million cash sitting in it. And
is that from Calming Blankets?
That was from Calming Blankets. Well, Oodie was overlapping then, and he was just blown away. Like, he had never seen that much money in an account, and I was 25 probably at this point. And that was a pretty cool feeling, because I'd never shown anyone that much money before. And it was always, for anyone that's had a successful business, knows how much that money goes up and down, because you're spending it all your money, like it was 1 month and then it all comes back the next month. So it's a pretty weird feeling where you feel like you're almost broke until you're not. And that's exciting.
I think I asked the wrong question earlier by bringing in Oodie, because you first had your success with calming blankets. Why I'm trying to ask this question is because a lot of people now are selling products, or like they find some success, but you actually created massive success through that small success that you found, the small fire that you found initially. How do you bet on that small success? Like, that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, when did you find the small success, and how did you decide that you're going to put all your money in it, or whatever? How did you
let data make these decisions for you? And again, like, I do believe in luck, and especially in these early stages. And this is why I think that if you watch any really successful person, including myself, I preach this, focus is so important, but only for the people that know what to focus on. Because if you're in the early stages, let's take my examples. I was selling snapback caps, I was selling seasoning, I was trying all of these different things. If I had just focused on those, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am. If I just focused on calming blankets and didn't launch Oodie, I'd be nowhere near where I am. Calming blankets, like, we couldn't focus on it enough and we didn't do the right things, and now it's gone. And I think these early stages, like, you find that little, you build your skill sets, and focus eventually will become really important. But it is really good to spread yourself thin and just try lots of things, because chances are it's going to increase your surface area of luck. And I think there comes a time where you do need to switch gear and knuckle down, and nobody has the answer to this. This is like one of the things that's on a continuum. It's like when to pivot, when to persevere, and nobody has the right answer for it. You need to surround yourself with really good people to help communicate what's going on, and you need to develop a gut instinct on the actual outputs that can happen and the inputs that you're putting into it, and make predictions and hypotheses to understand what to focus on in terms of that, like, little ember. Like, is this my first success? Is this worth it? But data is going to tell you, like, it was obvious. We did $2,000 without having the product in like one day for calming blankets. It was on the water, and I was selling on for a month wait time. Like, it's obvious that there's demand there. So yeah, look for the obvious trend as well.
So when it was just on water for a month, how did the customers react? Like, what happened there?
That was it's so funny. Like, the customers were waiting like a month. They were all so lovely. I emailed them every day. I had probably, like, I don't know, 50, 100 customers. And I was personally emailing them because I was like, I'm so sorry, I've got your money, blah, blah, blah. I was lucky I didn't get banned or something on Shopify. But yeah, I was emailing them, and it was because it went on something called a border hold. So when containers first get shipped in from a certain company, they want to check that it's not drugs or something like that. And so they put it on a border hold, and they had to scan every single blanket or something like that. So that was why there was a delay. And these are the things that you can't know until you try. But then, yeah, they finally got released, and it was like, I deal with problems now that are in the tens of millions of dollars of lost revenue. But that problem there, where I had maybe 50 customers that were potentially disappointed, but not really, felt more enormous than these $10 million problems. And this is the relativity thing, where I have friends that say, I wouldn't trade my life for Davie's, because they have seen it all. They have seen me, like, broken before, like absolutely soulless, because I'm working ridiculous hours and the complaints are so huge. But then some of them are running small businesses, and I'm like, what happened to you that you, like, was the worst issue? And the way they describe it is like that huge issue then. But yeah, it was such a good feeling to get that released. If only I knew that I would just keep getting issues like that forever. But yeah, you kind of just reframe that, and your mind becomes calloused.
I understand now when you say that you were lucky initially. So you were lucky that the customers didn't really sue you or anything.
You get so lucky. Yeah. Like, there's really successful entrepreneurs that have a beautiful custom-made product, and it could be like a family product recipe that's been passed down in generations. They follow all my tutorials, they do everything right, and then Facebook bans them, or Shopify bans them, or they get sued by a patent troll, which is like someone that just pretty much patents the product just to sue you.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many things that need to go right. This is the thing. This is why that all successful people over a long enough time horizon have this trait that they won't give up during those things, right? There are successful people in the short term that eventually will lose it all, because time is the ultimate equalizer for that. If you're feeling vindictive about a person that is more successful from you, that you know doesn't deserve it, you shouldn't stress, because either they do deserve it and eventually they're just going to outrun you, or they don't deserve it and time's going to catch up and you just need to stay your path. But I think, yeah, I got super, super lucky, and you just got to hope that those hits, one, don't knock you out of the game for good, and two, they are amazing lessons that can actually make you stronger.
You mentioned not giving up. What is not giving up to you? Is that working nonstop?
No, definitely not. I think not giving up has many different forms. And I think that not giving up, you need to take a step back and look at the longer the time horizon goes. So a 5 to 10 year goal. Maybe you want to create generational wealth. Maybe it's not that full on. Maybe you want to make sure that your kids can go to the doctor without you stressing about the money. Maybe you want them to go to a private school. Maybe you just want to treat your girlfriend. Like, these are longer time horizon goals that are the why. And I think that not giving up is like not giving up on those, because they are important to you, and you know spiritually and in terms of you regretting on your deathbed that you would have done those things. That's what not giving up is, by getting up consistently to achieve that. But that doesn't mean that you can't give up on a business, or give up on a shit relationship, or give up on something short term, because that is completely acceptable to pivot, as I said before. So not giving up is just staying true to those things that are actually important to you, which requires a lot of mindfulness.
Kevin Hart always talks about how, what's your story? What's your book on your deathbed?
Yeah.
Or even David Goggins, like when you die, your God comes and asks you, this is what your resume was, and did you live up to that standard? Is that how you feel as well? Like, do you think about dying at all?
I think about dying every day, every single day.
What do you think?
It just, it completely reframes like what you do on a daily basis. I think that it makes you question everything that you do. I think I agree with what is your book at the end of your story, at the end. But I don't agree that a lot of people just tune out as soon as you say that. I'm like, I don't want greatness. I don't want to run a 100-mile race. And that's fine. That's not the book that you need to write. You can write the book that is like, was a good husband, was a good father, and have those definitions. But I think that a lot of people underestimate the need to create and take risk to have some level of financial element within their story, because I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's been worth every sacrifice that I've made. But in terms of death, I definitely start to rethink it. I had an inflection point where I was like, I've got enough money. Like, I don't have as much as a lot of people. Trust me, I've got billionaire friends that have a lot more money than me. But it was a really powerful thing, thinking about death and then thinking about that I have enough, and then suddenly completely changing what I was trying to do from, rather than an earning potential, from an impact potential. Can I give away a free e-commerce course that makes 100 millionaires? Like, that's huge impact. Can I give that to people that weren't actually going to buy a course in the first place? And therefore, by giving it free, I've created more impact from that. So they're the things that death makes me rethink.
Before you started thinking about impact, it was about money
Yeah.
initially. Were you always like that?
Always, like literally always thinking about money, thinking about like how can it was just a game. It was just a literal game. It was like, I think I wanted to buy, back then, I don't really care about clothes now, but I wanted to buy clothes. I wanted to buy random things, buy holidays. I loved traveling. So it was always about that, which was definitely a shallow drive. Once you taste a lot of those things, it becomes a little bit different. As you mature, it becomes a little bit more about your family and your friends and what life you can provide them. Like I bought my parents a house, and that stuff is pretty important.
Was it also about winning?
I'm insanely competitive. I don't really know any really successful people that aren't insanely competitive. And I think the ones that don't seem competitive are very good at channeling when something isn't important to be competitive, like a random game of table tennis at the office and stuff like that. They can disconnect their ego from that. I'm on the flip side. It's like we're playing table tennis. I'm going to try to fucking win even though I'm terrible. So yeah, insanely competitive and always have been.
Does it also come from a dark place, do you think? Wanting to win?
I think that it definitely comes from a dark place, but at the same, I think it comes from a primal place. The caveman that runs the fastest, that fights the best, survives, and lives the most prosperous life. So I think that, look, if you really wanted to break down what creates a competitive person, it's their parents, I think, and their surroundings. It could be a sibling as well. It doesn't necessarily be the parents. It could be the friends.
Were you influenced like that?
I think so. I think that there was definitely an element of my parents wanting to win. Just like even all of this is osmosis. All of this is just being around it. So if they're playing the table tennis game and I'm a little kid and I'm sitting there and it's like, wow, dad really cares about winning this table tennis game. What am I going to do next time I play table tennis? And if your parents carry themselves like that across all aspects of life, you're going to carry yourself across all aspects of life. And I think that is okay. I think that is a good trait to have, providing that the other traits that are just as important as life, empathy, like compassion, generosity, like all of these kind of things are also embodied, then it's okay to be competitive as well, because there is that primal element of competitiveness.
Michael Jordan says you have to be selfish to be the best at anything.
Yeah.
But once you become the best, you have to be unselfish to retain there.
I think we need to define what the best is for you. Because again, you can just try to live your best life. What he was probably referring to is being the best basketball player of all time. To become that, you need to be selfish. But paradoxically, if you're trying to be the best husband, then you're probably going to have to be selfish in elements to maybe your friends, like because you're not spending as much time with them. But at the same time, you're being selfless to your partner. And I think if we can define what anything, doing anything great requires some level of sacrifice. So you need to define what you're willing to sacrifice for being great at something.
Did you have those selfish moments when in your business journey? What have you sacrificed?
Everything. I sacrificed absolutely everything. One thing that is the biggest trap for entrepreneurs is that you come into this world as a kid and you build all these hobbies and you build all of these relationships because they give you dopamine, they give you joy, they are rewarding for you. Then we build this feedback loop in our brain about business that creates bigger reward systems for us by making an extra dollar. So you skip a weekend hanging out with your friends, which previously was amazing, to make more money because that makes us feel better about it. And that makes a lot of sense for short-term joy. But eventually all of your hobbies, all of your relationships will slip away because all you're focusing on is work. And eventually you'll lose yourself as well. You will start to define yourself as this person that is making this much money, and you won't live up to those expectations. And that's when you start to say negative things about yourself, and that's when your mental health also goes. And then you don't have the relationships and the hobbies to switch off, which is the number one way to prevent mental health issues. And it's just a self-perpetuating cycle that causes a lot of issues. So I have been down that road. For a year when I was running this cafe, I didn't see my friends once. I stopped training. I was training like every day for 5 years before that. And so my health went, my friendships went, all of that kind of stuff. And then I've also had, during Oodie, like completely ruined my mental health as well, to the point where I was having panic attacks every day. So I think, you know, when you, and you're not immune. Any person that's listening to this is like, oh, that's just him. And there is a huge biological component towards mental health, but you are not immune. You just have a different threshold. And you are taking a risk if you want to do that. There is very few warning signs, because what you're doing is you're living with chronic stress and it feels okay. You're using stress to get up out of bed and get shit done, which feels great, but you don't actually realize you're constantly in this heightened state, and it will just hit you. It'll just hit you, and nobody's immune to that. And the frustrating thing is the remedy is not instantaneous. Taking a day off doesn't actually make you feel that much better. It really doesn't. Some people it does, and those people are going to have no issue. But for me, it was like if I played a round of golf or went and caught up with friends for coffee, I'd be like, fuck, why aren't I working? Like, get me there. It would make me feel worse. But the truth is, if I did that more, which I do now to switch off, I live a much healthier life.
Do you think that's when you shifted the purpose from money to giving back?
I think both are synonymous, right? Like I think both of those things have to be synonymous, money and giving back. Because let's take my impact for entrepreneurs as an example. I was unable to help. I've got 200 brands in Daily Mentor in pretty quick succession. I was unable to pay 7 coaches that have done over $100 million. They're not cheap. These people are very successful, to give them the content that they needed at scale. I could have tried to do it, but I wouldn't have enough time to do it. So by actually making money through that, I was able to pay them. Now, this is the same with these free Shopify e-commerce courses. There's no secret that there's affiliates for them. Now, I don't make money off these free shop. I've never made a cent. I've actually lost lots of money from my YouTube channel. If you look at my P&L, I think it broke even this year. But if I'm going to do if I can get those if I can create those 100 millionaires or get 1 million people through this free Shopify e-commerce course, like I'm going to have to use those affiliates to cover a lot of the costs of the supporting coaches and stuff like that. So they're definitely, that's the thing that I've grown to appreciate. I don't think my focus has switched from 100% not making money, but it's how do I balance those two things for impact?
I think that's a great segue to talk about Daily Mentor. What is Daily Mentor and why should we care?
Daily Mentor is a coaching mentoring group with daily sessions to help brand founders go from $1 million in revenue to $100 million in revenue. And we do this by covering the areas of finance, operations, marketing. We do this through a Slack group where you can message any expert, subject matter expert coach at any time, as well as, you know, weekly calls with me or daily calls with the other coaches.
Yeah, cool. And what kind of mistakes do you see small brands make early on in their business journey?
Every brand is different. I see $1 million brands that the founder is, you know, they've been in 3 years in business and their business is actually in pretty good state. I've seen brands that are doing $5 million and it's their first year of business and it's a mess. It is so scary because I've been there. I have had that and I almost lost my house and I got sued and it caused all kinds of issues. And it wasn't worth, like at that point, it wasn't worth the success that I had. And I think that the main mistakes that I see people make depends on where they're at. probably the first mistake is people thinking that they can. The first mistake is not surrounding themselves with really good people. So they hire a bunch of virtual assistants in the Philippines or in Eastern Europe or something like that, that are just there for the paycheck. And they're not ideas. They're not idea creators. And they don't implement enough processes, which eventually end up breaking. So they run out of inventory, they run out of cash, their Facebook ads stop working because they're not introducing enough creatives. So it's kind of not surrounding yourself with enough people is the core issue that I see.
And if you want to talk about the coaches, what kind of coaches are in there at Daily Mentor, and what can people learn from them?
I think there's a few different cultures. There's kind of, if I had to summarize them, there's like the drop shipper in Europe that, you know, in the Netherlands who is, you know, maybe they've had a couple of drop shipping products and now they've hit it big and they just want a sense of community. And then there's like the Australian business owner who is, you know, just so bamboozled with e-commerce as a whole, and they just need resources, or they don't even know what questions to ask because they aren't accessing the public forms of information. So there's a few different avatars, but realistically, all of them, their problems can be solved through amazing resources such as dashboards, these kind of things, and then also consistent content and up-to-date information that can keep them ahead of their competitors.
Do you remember a specific instance where a brand came in and described one of their issues and you or your coaches solved it? Can you talk through one of the instances?
Yeah, for sure. We had a brand come in and he had raised a lot of money. So he's taken on investors and he was doing $3 million. And that's great. And he was like, I want to do retail. I want to do this. I'm doing this marketing channel. I'm not making money though. And I was like, hang on a second. Like you're doing all of these things. And we taught him how to fix his site speed. We fixed his CRO. We helped him cut his agencies who were idiots. Like my Facebook team got in there and you can do this thing where you click and you go show history and it shows you every change that your person has made. And they weren't doing anything. They hadn't done anything and he didn't know. So we got rid of them and put someone good in place. We doubled the amount of static images that he was adding and we taught him how to create offers. And he was running an unprofitable business for like over a year, 2 years. And within a month we fixed it. And I think that, yeah, like it's those kind of stories that, make it worth it.
So with Daily Mentor, you have set your purpose up. And do you enjoy that more than when you were working with Oodie?
I said that I would never sell an info product. So for reference, if I sold a course to beginners, I could have $1 million every single month in my bank account. Like there are people that are less accomplished in e-commerce that are doing way more money than that selling a course. And it's those kind of people, and the times that I've gone through those courses, just like, this needs to change. Like they are gouging cash away from people that don't even know what dropshipping is before they even buy into the course. But then when I did these mentoring calls on an app where you can just book one-on-ones, and I was just like, let me just see what's going on. They had the exact same questions that I had when I was growing my business. And a lot of them had sadder stories than me, or more trialing situations than me, autoimmune conditions, car crashes, these kind of things, losing their family. And I was just like, and they were just like, oh, I've done this. And I'm like, well, this is going to happen next. And I could see that they couldn't understand that their car crash, like the business car crash, was about to happen. And as soon as I was like, okay, no, let's fix this. Let's invest in the coaches. Let's build a robust system around this. As soon as I did that and I started getting some feedback, even my assistant who's worked on me with all of my projects called me and she was like, by the way, Daily Mentor, my favorite thing to work on, because the reviews when we can actually change their life is so rewarding, more rewarding than selling a wearable blanket. So I was definitely wrong about selling info. But again, I think I go through it with I'm not perfect, but at the same time, I think I go by framing that I'm not going to sell to beginners outright. I'm going to make it accessible so that people with $0 can actually access this information. That's a good starting point. And eventually they can afford to pay for, higher end coaching because they'll be making millions of dollars. And if I can get them to that $1 million mark, that's a good thing.
Do you think Daily Mentor got unlocked because of your personal brand?
100%. I think that when I was considering launching a personal brand, I was extremely camera shy. I hated being in the limelight. Like I'd never done a public speech. I was always the friend that would never tell stories. I would be one-word answers. I was a massive introvert. It was even to the point where I wouldn't even turn on my camera when I was addressing my team at that point.
Yeah.
And I was doing hundreds of millions of dollars. It was really bad. So, but I was walking on the beach and I was just like, I was texting one of my mates. I was like, look, I think we're going to do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll just stop. And yeah, we tried our first video. It's You Were There, and it didn't go very well. And then we tried the second one and it went okay. It didn't go that well. But then, yeah, we just grew that personal brand. And I think that credibility does really help, but also the authenticity that people know that I'm not trying to price gouge them. I'm not trying to take advantage. That trust is definitely there, which helps.
When we first started filming, I was wondering whether you don't actually enjoy this because you were really shy.
I didn't enjoy it. I fucking hated it.
So do you still hate it, or?
I think a lot of creators stop because they're producing content that they don't want to produce. And I think it got to a point where I was doing that. And that's when, you went off and started your own agency, and I was just like, I'm just going to have a break. But now I'm at a point where I enjoy learning. And right now I'm learning how to write. Like, I'm trying to become a better storyteller. I'm trying to become a better writer. And if I'm writing stuff that I enjoy and then putting that out in whether it be video format or Twitter, I love that. It's sometimes creating reproduced content that unfortunately favors the algorithm. That stuff can be pretty draining for me because maybe it's not as authentic as I'd want to be.
Do you think it's important to have a personal brand if you have an e-commerce business or like other service business?
I think that if you've already got a successful business, you should only start a personal brand if it's going to grossly amplify that existing business in some way. Or you can replace yourself out of that business in a more profitable way, like hiring a CEO, and then move on. If you do not have a business and you're looking to start something, I think that trying to build an audience initially is great, but you need to have something unique about you. You need to be able to run 100 miles, or you need to, be an amazing chef or something like that. You need a point of difference, build that audience, and then launch your e-commerce brand off that. I think that's a great way to actually build a really sustainable business, and also a negative CAC business, which means that you can acquire customers while producing money from sponsors as well.
You have made a lot of money with Oodie by creating a really beautiful brand, and you have created a purpose with Daily Mentor, and you have a personal brand where you can learn and share your knowledge. How has perception about winning has changed for you from the time that you started?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that I've realized that it's on a continuum, that you can win on a daily basis, but you're never actually going to win. It's an infinite game. And I think that you realize that when you can't sit still and you have enough money, but then you try to have a week off and you're like, I'm going to launch another business, because it's rewarding, it's fun. So that's how winning has changed.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'll see you tomorrow.
Great. That's it.